High above the sleeping cities, a single-engine plane cut through the clouds like a silver arrow. The night was restless. Thunder rolling far to the west, stars swallowed by stormlight. Inside the small cockpit, a woman in a Navy flight jacket adjusted the temperature gauge, her eyes flicking from the horizon to the small insulated box at her side. From inside that box came the faintest sound, a whimper, a heartbeat wrapped in fur. A Mexican gray wolf pup, barely 12 days old, blinked under the dim red light. Its tiny chest rose and fell with fragile rhythm. Emma Reynolds had flown countless missions for LightHawk eagles, ospreys, even a manatee once. But never this. Never something so small, so desperately alive. She checked her watch. 14 hours, she murmured. That was the time window. The pup had to reach Arizona before dawn, before the wild mother lost the scent of her own offspring. If Emma failed, the pup would die, and a lineage on the brink of extinction would lose another chance. Every breath she took echoed in the silence. Then a twitch, a tiny paw, a heartbeat against her skin. She exhaled shakily, smiling through the fog on her visor. That's it. That's how you fight. Lightning split the clouds outside, illuminating the cockpit, the woman and the pup, bound by a shared instinct to survive. That spring, 27 wolf pups were on their way home. Each carried the hope of a species reborn. But for Emma Reynolds, this heartbeat pressed against her ribs, would become more than a mission. It would become a promise. What happened next would change the future of a species. Emma Reynolds had never planned to become a wildlife pilot. Once she flew for the U.S. Air Force Precision Flight's rescue operations, cargo missions across the Pacific. She had medals, scars, and one story she never liked to tell the night her co-pilot went down during a storm over Alaska. After that, she quit flying for good. Or so she thought. 5 years later, she found herself back in the air, not for war, not for duty, but for something gentler. A second chance born from purpose. LightHawk was different. It wasn't about money or medals. It was about connection, lending wings to those who protected life below. For Emma, that meant partnering with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, USFWS, and their ambitious program, the SAFE Initiative, saving animals from extinction. Outside the hangar, the LightHawk plane gleamed under gray skies. A single-engine Beechcraft Bonanza, worn but loyal, its paint scuffed by years of missions. Emma ran her palm along the fuselage like greeting an old friend. "Ready to fly again," she whispered. In the world of wildlife recovery, success is measured not in numbers, but in generations. A single wolf pup safely placed into a wild den could introduce new genes into an entire population. It could strengthen a species for decades to come. That was the purpose of this mission, to give one fragile life a chance to change the story of its kind. "Echo," she murmured. "That's what you'll become out there, won't you?" A sound carried farther than anyone expects. By hour 3, clouds thickened over the Appalachians. Emma adjusted altitude weaving between pockets of turbulence. Below, forests stretched endlessly, rivers glinting like ribbons of glass. She imagined the wolves running there, ghosts reborn after half a century. Each of the 27 pups being flown that week represented hope, a collective heartbeat of a species rebounding. But for Emma, the mission wasn't just about wolves, it was about redemption. About learning to trust the sky again. Her headset crackled. "LightHawk 213. You're clear on course to Oklahoma airspace. Safe travels." She smiled. "Copy that." Then she reached for the crate again. The pup stirred. She hummed softly, an old tune her mother used to sing. Outside, the storm clouds began to gather, faint at first, then dark as iron. The journey had only begun, but in that fragile warmth beneath her jacket, something ancient was awakening, not just in the wolf pup, but in her. By dawn, the horizon had turned copper and gold. The plane crossed the last edge of Oklahoma airspace, gliding smoothly above the plains. It should have been a calm leg of the journey, except calm had never been part of this story. Emma sipped cold coffee, eyes darting between her altimeter and the soft glow of the heat monitor. 98 Eve, still steady. Inside the crate, Echo twitched in his sleep, tiny paws flexing like he was dreaming of running already. She smiled. "You're tougher than you look, little wolf." She'd heard that phrase 1,000 times during her military days, but this was the first time it truly felt sacred. That night had broken her. Not the storm itself, but the weight of survival, the guilt of being the one who made it out. She hadn't flown again until LightHawk, until she realized that saving lives could be another way to make peace with the sky. A pilot's worst fear isn't falling. It's not knowing whether the next second will be your last. She leveled the plane manually, fingers white-knuckled on the yoke. "Stay with me," she whispered to the plane, to the pup, to herself. There are moments in life when duty turns into devotion, when the line between responsibility and love blurs completely. For Emma, that moment came somewhere over the New Mexico desert, when the sun dipped behind the clouds, and she realized that this tiny creature, this flicker of life, had reminded her how to hope again. By the time the sun set over Arizona, the storm had passed. But the real challenge, the one waiting on the ground, was only beginning. By the time Emma reached Arizona airspace, the sky had turned the color of rust and fading fire. The mountains rose like shadows against the dying light, and the desert below seemed endless, a canvas painted with solitude. Her fuel gauge blinked amber. Headwinds had slowed her progress, but there was no time to land for refueling. Every minute mattered. Every breath from the crate beside her was a reminder that this wasn't just cargo, it was life on a deadline. She radioed in. "USFWS base, this is LightHawk 213. Crossing into Apache National Forest corridor. Estimated arrival, 2200 hours. A calm voice answered, "Copy 213. We're tracking you. Ground team will meet you on the runway. Pups foster den prepped and stable." Emma exhaled. Roger that. Some bonds don't need words. They just need trust and a heartbeat to answer back. But the desert wasn't done testing her. Adrenaline steadied her hands, but inside fear gnawed. She knew how fast a flight could turn from routine to catastrophe. One wrong vibration, one mechanical failure, and both of them would be names on a report. But that night, courage didn't roar. It whispered through grit teeth and trembling hands. "Keep going." In that moment, it wasn't about heroism or headlines. It was about something purer, the quiet relief of seeing life endure. No simulator, no training flight could prepare her for this. The rules of the sky no longer applied here. This was the domain of instinct and moonlight. The moment came. A low signal whistle, 2 short notes. Dr. Lopez raised his hand. "Go." Emma dropped to her knees, crawling through pine needles, slick with dew. The air smelled of soil and fur. Her gloves brushed the cool earth as she approached the den entrance, a narrow tunnel framed by roots and stone. Inside, faint whimpers. A mother's breath. The sound of a living cradle. Emma whispered to the pup, "This is where you belong." She set him down just beyond the opening, tucked between warmth and shadow. A shape stirred inside. 2 golden eyes flashed in the darkness. The wild mother appeared cautious but calm. She sniffed the air, then the newcomer. For an endless heartbeat, everything stopped. Then, acceptance. The mother nudged the pup closer to her body, wrapping around him. Emma covered her mouth, eyes flooding. She backed away slowly, heart hammering. It took less than a minute. A transfer of trust between species, silent and sacred. A human's mission ending where a mother's love began. Back at the truck, Dr. Lopez clapped her shoulder. "You did well." Emma shook her head. "She did well." He smiled. "True. But without your wings, she'd have never had the chance." In wildlife rescue, success isn't a celebration. It's a silence, the kind that hums with gratitude. That night, as Emma packed her flight gear and prepared for the journey home, she realized something profound. Every creature saved is a reminder that kindness, when paired with science, can rewrite extinction itself. The mission was complete. But for Emma, the bond had only just begun. By the time the truck reached the base station, the forest had swallowed every trace of the night. The den was behind them, a pocket of life now hidden under the weight of roots and silence. For most people, that would have been the end of the story. For Emma, it was only the beginning of something she didn't yet understand. Wildfires are part of the natural cycle, but in years of drought, they become monsters devouring everything in hours. For the wolves, there's no evacuation plan, only instinct. The world below had turned red. Columns of smoke twisted upward like living things. Forests she had flown over weeks ago, bright green, alive, now burned in ribbons of flame. Every instinct screamed to turn back. But the same voice that told her to save the pup whispered again, "Now. Don't stop." Inside the cockpit, the air smelled of heat and ash. Her radio buzzed with overlapping calls. "All teams clear the perimeter. Wind shift from the south danger zone expanding. Copy that. Pulling out." Emma gritted her teeth. Not yet. She circled low, scanning with binoculars. Through the smoke, a glint movement, something running along a blackened ridge. Wolves. 3 of them. Then 4. Her pulse surged. "Come on, where are you?" Then she saw it, a smaller figure lagging behind, lighter, in coat, limping slightly. A pup. Echo. Fire chased them like a living wall, closing in from every side. There was no time for a ground team, no safe route to reach them. Emma's training rewrote itself in seconds. She flipped the emergency hatch switch, lowered altitude to near treetop level, and steadied the plane. She grabbed the radio. "Base. This is LightHawk 213. Visual on Wolfpack coordinates 34.21 by 109.73. I'm marking smoke path, request fire suppression at Vector North Ridge now. Copy 213, teams en route. But Reynolds, get out of there, negative. They're not clear yet." She stayed. When the mission report came in that night, the team confirmed what she already knew: the Apache Ridge Pack had survived. And among them was a young male with a distinctive left ear notch, the same marking Echo had when she carried him in her jacket. The wildfire burned for 9 days, destroying thousands of acres, but the wolves adapted. They migrated north, re-establishing territory within weeks. Nature, it seemed, had its own stubborn will to survive. And so did she. Wolves don't remember faces, not in the human sense, but they remember energy scent rhythm, the quiet echo of safety. The young wolf tilted his head slightly, as if recognizing something. Then he howled a low, trembling note that climbed into the air like a song carried by memory. It wasn't fear. It wasn't warning. It was acknowledgement. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You made it," she whispered. "You really made it." The wolf turned, pausing once more at the tree line before vanishing into the forest. Life, like flight, is fragile. But in the hands of those who care, the pilots, the scientists, the mothers of the wild, even the smallest heart can rewrite extinction. That day, standing beneath a canopy of reborn pines, Emma understood what her old instructor had once told her. Every flight changes you. The good ones just leave a mark you can't erase. She smiled toward the sky. Somewhere above the clouds, her next mission waited. Every rescue has 2 sides: the miracle seen by the heart and the controversy measured by the mind. In the months after the wildfire, the Apache Ridge wolves became a national headline. News outlets called them the Miracle Pack. But not everyone agreed that miracles belonged in the wild. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had confirmed success. At least 21 of the 27 pups had survived and integrated into wild packs. It was the highest number in program history. But with success came scrutiny. Ranchers in northern Arizona claimed livestock losses were rising. Some environmental groups accused the agency of playing God. For LightHawk, the debate cut deep. Their pilots weren't scientists or policymakers. They were volunteers who gave their time, their planes, and sometimes their safety. And no one embodied that more than Emma Reynolds. It was a strange line to walk between secrecy and trust, between transparency and protection. For Emma, the issue wasn't just political. It was personal. She had seen what interference looked like: storms of drones over sanctuaries, fences cut tourists wandering too close to dens. Sometimes the kindness of humans turned deadly. That week, a documentary crew approached LightHawk for access. They wanted Emma to appear on camera to tell the story of the wolf pilot. The interview aired the following week. It went viral. Clips of Emma holding the wolf pup inside her plane spread across social media, millions of views, thousands of comments. Some called her a hero. Others accused her of meddling with the natural order. Then came the formal letter. For the first time since the mission, the cost of compassion came due. The hearing would decide whether she could continue flying for LightHawk. They cleared her of all charges. The committee issued a formal commendation for initiative and courage during wildlife emergency operations. LightHawk reinstated her flights. But the incident left its mark. The public had seen the beauty of human effort and the burden that came with it. Saving a species wasn't just about the wolves anymore. It was about teaching humanity where compassion ends and respect begins. Conflict. Emma learned wasn't just fought in the air or in flames. It lived in the quiet spaces between belief and fear, between human and wild. But as long as there were people willing to bridge that gap, to fly through storms through doubt, the wolves would never be alone again. 1 year passed. The desert had healed not completely, but enough for life to begin again. Green returned to the slopes, rivers ran silver through blackened canyons, and somewhere among the pine ridges of Apache Ridge, a young wolf led his own pack. For Emma, the flight logs had become routine again. Birds, small mammals transport runs for sanctuaries, but none of them carried the weight of that single crate marked Echo. Every spring brought new missions, new pups to carry, and yet every time she prepared for takeoff, she found herself glancing at the empty seat beside her. The space where a heartbeat once slept. Sometimes life gives you full circles, not to repeat the past, but to show you how far you've come since. There are many ways to measure success: numbers, reports, survival rates. But for Emma, the truest measure was simpler, knowing that something she'd carried once now carried itself through the world. She knew this was goodbye, not the sad kind, but the kind that carries peace inside it. Wolves weren't meant to stay with humans. They were meant to remind us what freedom sounds like when it echoes through the trees. There are no medals for flights like these, no parades, no applause, just the quiet knowledge that for one brief moment, humanity and the wild walked and flew in the same direction. And when the wind shifted through the valley, it carried two sounds at once: the hum of a plane rising into the sky, and the distant howl of wolves greeting the morning. Different languages, same message: home. By the following spring, the wilderness looked alive again. Green needles replaced black ash. Wildflowers painted the valleys, and ravens circled the ridgelines like guardians of something reborn. The Apache Ridge Pack, once thought lost, now numbered 12. Across the country, the headlines told the story simply: 27 wolf pups reintroduced. 21 survive. 8 lead new packs. But behind those numbers were hundreds of hands, long nights, and quiet flights that no one ever saw. For Emma Reynolds, the mission had ended. But the echoes of wings, of howls, of lessons learned carried on. LightHawk grew that year. More volunteers, more missions. Each pilot carried their own story of redemption, of healing, of purpose. And in quiet corners of sanctuaries across the Southwest, small gray pups continued to find their way home. In April 2025, USFWS and LightHawk released their official report. The cross-fostering initiative between the United States and Mexico has resulted in the highest Mexican gray wolf survival rates in history. Each pup's journey had been logged, tracked, and verified. Each flight documented. Each volunteer named, though most declined recognition. Because this kind of work wasn't about fame. It was about faith in biology, in instinct, in kindness. Education became part of her new mission. She spoke in schools, at wildlife centers, and at airfields, not to tell her story, but to share the truth that saving a species wasn't a single act. It was a chain of small decisions made by people who refused to give up. Nature doesn't thank you with words. It answers with balance, with rivers that flow again, forests that grow again, and species that learn to live again. For every storm endured, there's a sunrise waiting. For every pup flown to safety, there's a song in the mountains that will never fade. Emma Reynolds didn't call herself a hero. She called herself lucky to have been the wings that carried a heartbeat toward its destiny. And somewhere in the endless wilderness, a wolf lifted his head to the wind and howled, not in grief, not in fear, but in gratitude. Because sometimes saving the wild begins with a single flight and one small wolf pup who reminds us all what home really means. Every flight leaves a trace, not on the sky, but on the heart. And sometimes those traces form a map, one that leads back to the reason we began. Emma Reynolds once believed flying was about control. Now she knew it was about surrender to the wind, to trust to something larger than herself. She had crossed half a continent for a creature that couldn't even open its eyes. And in doing so, she learned that the most powerful journeys aren't measured in miles, but in meaning. Conservation isn't just science. It's faith turned into practice. It's the belief that humans can still be part of nature's recovery, not just its undoing. When people talk about extinction, they often speak in endings. But this story, their story, is proof that endings can be rewritten. Maybe that's the lesson hidden in every howl across the forest. That empathy isn't weakness, it's evolution. That courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just keeps flying forward, 1 mile, 1 breath, 1 heartbeat at a time. And that hope, when given wings, can travel farther than fear ever could. If you ever hear a wolf's cry in the distance, don't think of danger. Think of connection, of all the lives seen and unseen that worked to make that sound possible. Think of the pilots, the scientists, the mothers, human and wild, who proved that saving one life can ripple through generations. Because the story of the wolves isn't just theirs. It's ours too, a reminder that compassion, when guided by knowledge, can heal even the most fractured ecosystems. So when the next storm comes, and it always does, may we all remember what Emma Reynolds once whispered through the static of her cockpit. Sometimes the smallest heart can teach the sky how to love again.